I want you to picture that client who's literally only had a partial highlight for the last 6 years. She walks in, sits down in your chair, and you have to figure out how to strategically marry her entire head and make it look like one harmonious color. Hi, I'm Eric Vaughn. I'm Kenra Professional's Artistic Director for Kenra Color, and I'm gonna be showing you exactly how to do that. Our gorgeous model here today walked in with an extreme partial highlight that we combined and married multiple techniques together to create this gorgeous, stunning buttercream blonde. It also happens to be very similar to a look that I created for our Kenra Color campaign recently. So I'm gonna show you guys all of my top secret tips and tricks to creating the most stunning dimensional blondes. Let's get to it. So this is my gorgeous model, Sam, and as you can see, her hair is quite different from the color campaign visual that we did. I created this really stunning blonde for our color campaign launch, and so that's what we're replicating today. What we have through her interior is a very significant amount of depth. She's basically been a partial queen for a very long time. So we're gonna be making her feel lighter, brighter, and a little bit more balanced. She almost has two different hair colors happening in her hair. She's got her depth in her interior that almost hasn't had any highlights at all. And then she's almost over highlighted in her crown. So what we're wanting to do is kind of balance everything, marry everything together. So we'll be going in with a lot of highlights through her interior. In her crown, we'll be bringing together some highlights and lowlights to kind of marry the depth and contrast that she's gonna have through the interior. Marry that all together here, and then we're gonna be making her super popped and bright around her face. For her sectioning, I like to keep it simple. I really don't like to overcomplicate things. As hairstylists, we have a tendency to do 10,000 extra steps that we don't need to do. I'm gonna turn her to the side and we'll do our sectioning from the top of the head directly behind her ears, and that will be the break for our parting. So I'm gonna go ahead and section, mix up color, and we'll come back to start. All right, so we've got all of our sections done. We're gonna be starting right in the nape. I'm really wanting to target a lot of brightness through the interior, but I also, because knowing that she's a partial girl, I don't wanna make her maintenance too heavy for her. So I will be doing some teases through the interior here, just so we have a very soft transition through the color. So I'm gonna take my first diagonal back slice. So I'm working with a lot of natural, and I can see that she's got a lot of little baby hairs. I don't like to shine light down dark hallways, so that way, some of the little things that are hiding in those dark hallways can stay hidden, so we don't necessarily wanna bring attention to all of these little baby hairs that she has back here. So I'll be taking a medium tease, and my medium tease, I'm starting halfway down the section, so it's a medium push. If I wanted to eliminate a lot and add a lot of depth, I would start lower, pushing a lot of that up. But because of her density and the amount of short hairs that she has, if I do that, I won't have a lot of strength through here. So I'm just gonna be doing a nice medium tease, holding my section nice and taut, giving one good push, and then I'm just gonna go back and kind of flick through that just to clean it up. Again, pushing out some of those shorter hairs from the underneath. And we're just gonna clip that teasing out of the way. And I'm going in with my Simply Blonde Beyond Bond Lightener with 10 volume. I don't need a heavy amount of lift, so I'm using a 10 volume so we can work low and slow, especially through this nape that's gonna be sitting a lot longer. And because I gave it a really nice push with that tease, I don't need to go in and do this heavy amount of feathering. I'm just giving it a soft feather up towards the top, working these darker ends into the foil. Going back in and resaturating in the heaviest of her dark area. And one thing that I always suggest doing with your foil work when you are taking larger sections is to flip it up and check the underside for saturation. You saw how much lightener I put on that section, and look at how much did not pass through. This is huge for your lifting. This is a huge tip for you guys when you're working in larger sections. Make sure you saturate the underside extremely well. The finer your sections, the less likely you are going to need to do this, but because I wanted this really big, bright, bold push right by her nape, because again, when this hair pushes forward, it's part of her face frame, I took a larger subsection. So I just saturated through the underneath, replaced my foil in, and now I can fold this to lock everything in place. My nape is going to be my biggest, boldest slice, and after that, my slicing is gonna get a little bit finer. Making sure our teasing is staying out of that section. I'm gonna make this diagonal just a tiny bit smaller so we get that really great lift. And I'm going back in with the same medium tease. So again, grabbing my section nice and tight, starting at the middle of the strand and giving a nice push all the way up. And if my teasing ever feels like it's getting stuck, I take my comb back at the top of my teasing, give it a push. Now I go back from the bottom of my teasing and I give that another push. Don't forget the underside as well. You wanna make sure that your teasing comes from the underneath as well, so I'm just making sure to pack that in. Giving that a nice little flick to get all those little crosshairs out of the way. Again, because she has so much depth right around her nape, I wanna make sure I'm really building this up. Taking my lightener and I'm just fully saturating. And again, because I have a very good amount of tease, I'm not worried about any sharp lines. So I am going to take that and just give it a soft feather up. And because her ends are still dark, they're about a level like 7, 8. I can bring them all the way into the foil and make sure I'm brightening them because I am using the Beyond Bond lightener. I know I have a little bit of security on my side and I'm only using 10 volume. After this foil, my application technique does change slightly. So this will be the last of these bold pieces. See how much lightener I applied, but lightener did not pass through. Now that I've got this really nice bold pop through the nape, now I'm gonna begin working on my finer slicing with teasing. And this is where I'm gonna start to add some of that natural back in. So I'm taking my slice, my diagonal slice back, clipping out of the way. And now I'm going to take a fine slice off of that. Now I'm leaving drop out. Giving that a nice little medium tease just for some soft diffuse. And now because my slicing is so much finer, I'm not gonna go in and flip my foils upside down because I know that my product is gonna push all the way through. Same thing, just a light feather at the top. I'm not super worried because I did give it a nice little tease. I'm picking out this middle piece that is a little bit on the lighter side. I'm gonna leave that out, but I am going to pull through these little darker pieces that are on the side. Just resaturating up towards the top, giving it a soft feather. And again, I'm leaving these ends out because they're already pretty light. I don't need that sitting in a foil the whole time. I'm gonna continue this up until we get to her crown, and then I'll come back and do a couple tip outs with you. So I'm just gonna continue and we'll come back for the tip out. So I just finished all of my fine teased slices up into the crown. I'm stopping here because this is the area where she began her partial. So this is where we're a little bit heavier in the blonde. So I'm gonna be changing technique here. So I wanna go back in and add some tip outs because her ends, it looks like she's about a level 9 through her midsection. But then once we look at her ends, she looks a little bit more like 8-ish. So we really wanna bump that out and really clean it up. So we're gonna go in with a couple tip outs. I don't want to eliminate all of her depth, just some. So I'm gonna start from the bottom and I'm gonna start pulling my tip outs out to the side. So bringing one, dropping my foil, grabbing my second, and I'm gonna start there. So I'm gonna clip these together to keep my section nice and clean. So I'm over directing forward. That over direction is gonna create a natural high to low progression when it lays back down into its natural fall. So that's already creating a layer of blend for me. Because I'm only wanting to highlight through her ends, I'm gonna start my tease pretty low to give me that diffuse. So I'm just going to push that up, pushing up, just making that section nice and clean. And I'm gonna take a pretty like chunky weave, leaving just that little bit out. It's always important to remember where you teased from will create your blend. So if you tease from up high and you're painting your ends, you're gonna have no blend from the hair that you pushed up. So that's why it was important to start my tease from the bottom section pushing up. So when this hair brushes back down, I'll have some blend and diffuse through the area that I'm painting. So I'll just place my ends in the foil. And for this, I'm going to paint towards the bottom, getting my ends nice and saturated. And I will paint with a high to low. Again, if my over direction is causing a high to low, my paint is causing a high to low, and my tease is also diffusing, when this goes back down into natural fall, it will be seamlessly blended and beautiful. I think the worst thing in the world is when you do tip outs and you don't either over direct, you don't tease, or you don't paint for diffuse. You end up seeing these like really sharp, chunky pieces down towards the ends, and that is the hardest thing in the world to fix at the end. So if you do these 3 steps to kind of create that perfect blend in your tip out, you won't have any sharp lines. So I finished my right quadrant up to the crown with my tip outs. I'm gonna do the exact same thing on this side with my 2 a little bit bolder slice teases. Then I'm gonna work my way into my fine slice teases up to the crown, doing my tip outs. We'll come back and do the crown together. All right, so our back quadrants are completely finished. We have all of our fine tease slices, our tip outs here, 2 on each side. And now we're starting in our crown. And this is where our hair color essentially changes technique, because we were working on one canvas in the back and now we're working on a separate canvas on the top and the front. So I am going to begin doing scalp highlighting along with low lighting. So I'm going in with our Demi 8B 9N. I'm not looking to match her natural completely. I almost just want to add in like a shadowy shimmer of depth through this overly highlighted area. So that 8B is going to give me that beige tone that has a slightly cool base to it. And then my 9N is on the slightly warmer side. So it's gonna give me a very beautifully balanced, I would say like a leaning 8, 8.5 with my tone and level. So the way I'm going to be doing that is I'll take my first slice across the crown. So I'm gonna be doing what's called a broken slice. Essentially, it's gonna be a slice across the top with a like broken weave through the interior. It's going to give me like the marriage of a slice and a weave together, making it bold, but also soft at the same time. So I'll go in under my surface just like a slice, and I'm going to be weaving through the interior, but never breaking through the surface. So I've got a very clean slice on the top with this like broken weave pattern through the interior. Clip that piece out of the way. And now all of my little dropouts from my broken slice become my low light. So my low light is going to be very, very, very soft. These are the low lights that are perfect for your blondes who don't want to see their low lights. So many blondes have like this fear. You mentioned the word low light and I think they're gonna be like Kelly Clarkson, chunky, stripy highlights. But in reality, when blondes are feeling too blonde, it's because they're lacking depth. And this is the perfect way to put depth in without absolutely terrifying them. So I'm going in with my low light formula, feathering up into her natural, and I'm going to feather that down almost all the way to her ends. So I'm leaving a little bit of her natural end out. So I have this really beautiful progression of dark to light. Going back and resaturating just a touch, feathering that up. And now I'm gonna be taking my broken slice, and that is my highlight. And I'm still using Beyond Von Lightener with 10 volume. I still want low and control lift. I can always pull foils when they're ready, but I always like to go in low, slow, and controlled with my lift. And so now this is just a classic scalp highlight. Really getting into that dark area, and I'm just going to lightly feather. This end to me is a little bit on the darker side, so we are going to bring that up into our lightener. While still just feathering, I don't feel like those ends need the lightener. I would always rather not stress out ends because I know that once I get to the shampoo bowl, if I have a few ends that are just a little bit on the dark side, I can always go in and do a wet balayage on them and paint them to brighten them. But once you wrap that up in that foil, if it's sitting for 30, 40, 50 minutes, that's where you can lead to some issues. So we just want to be very careful. And through this crown, I'm doing, I would say like half an inch to an inch between my foils because I still want to maintain some depth. So I'm not going super back to back tight. I'm leaving some space between so I have some nice area for that low light to really go in and build in some strength. As we get closer and closer to the front, we're gonna be bringing the foil density closer and closer and closer together. So I'm just going again with that broken slice. So I'm weaving under the surface, but never breaking above the surface. So I have that slice clean across the top, but a weave through the interior. Clipping my highlight out of my way. And then all of my dropouts from that broken slice are my low light. Again, with my low light, I'm painting where her blonde is, feathering up into my natural. And because I'm still in the same area, I'm still going to paint this down almost all the way to her ends. To create that natural horseshoe shadow, as I get closer and closer to her face with her low light, we'll be painting higher and higher and higher and higher to the point that I'm just painting over her like line of demarcation. I'll show you that as we get further towards the hairline. So there's my low light, going right in on that little broken slice, and here's my highlight. I see a little dark piece here, so I'm just gonna feather over that. That was our last foil in the crown section. We're gonna be again working on our hairline and side quadrants now, and then we'll come back to this when we start working on our mohawk. Working on our side hairline, I've taken a parting right at her recession, straight back to separate my side from my mohawk. I always like to look at the way that their hairline kind of grows and the pattern that it lays in, and that helps me kind of decide my hairline placement and sectioning. So tilting her over just a tiny bit. I wanna make her really bright, but I also wanna make sure everything is really connected, but also soft at the same time. She does want a soft grow out, so we're kind of marrying the two of bright, yet soft. So I'm gonna take my first diagonal back, which includes kind of her peak of her hairline and her little sideburn here. So I'm gonna take my broken slice here, just leaving a little tiny bit of dropout around her sideburn. And I'm going in super tight on that hairline, locked right in place, and I wanna make sure every hair we touch is important. But when you foil, I also want you to think about what is the most important hair inside this foil. The most important hair inside this foil to me would be this hair right here. That's the most important. So if I'm going to choose a hair to focus on, it's always going to be the one that's right on the front of their hairline. That's what they look at, that's what they see. Obviously, we want every single hair to feel just as important. So if I have to correct and pull my foil just a little bit closer to one side, it's always going to be that front hairline. And if you notice with my foils in the back when I'm working on much longer hair, I leave my foils laid flat and I add a second foil and kind of sandwich them. All along the hairline, I do fold and lock these hairline foils in nice and tight. I don't want to risk anything slipping or moving. Taking my next diagonal back, but I'm going to be slightly begin pieing. So I start from here, diagonal back, and then we'll take a diagonal back, and then I'll end in more of a horizontal placement. Same thing, broken slice, and around her hairline, I'm just highlighting. I will only reintroduce my lowlights when we get back to the crown. And because she's already so light through these areas, I don't need to pull anything through. This is where her highlight has been primarily focused in the past, so I don't need to do anything heavy. I don't have to do any heavy lifting. A lot of my heavy lifting was through the back. Taking another slight diagonal back while continuing my pieing, so it is going to rotate to that horizontal. On this section, she does have a little bit more interior depth, so I am going to drag that down slightly, bring that very end in to get a little bit of additional pop there because that end is pretty dark. For this section, because I did paint a little bit further down, I don't like to fold, I don't like crease marks, so I'll place that next foil on top and sandwich it in. And I'm just gonna continue this up this section until I get all the way to the top with the exact same broken slice. So as you can see, we finished up our sides. Both, we did slight diagonal backs, and then we pied into our horizontal sections. So now I'm gonna start on like my face frame of her money piece. She is predominantly in this like off middle part, but because she's also a working model, she tends to flip flop. So I'm gonna do my hairline placement so no matter where she places her part, it's gonna flip, look beautiful, and be evenly connected. I always prefer a fully connected hairline versus focusing so much on a part line. So what I'll do is I'll kind of bring her hair all the way back, and I'm gonna have you look down, and I'm gonna find where her hairline is the most connected. So I can see from here to here, I've got a very even line. We come a little bit further here, and we're a little bit more like kind of broken to the side this way. Everybody has a unique hairline, so it's all about dissecting their hairline to find what's gonna be the best placement for you. I know that I can look at this and see if I work her back this way just slightly, now I've got a super clean straight line here, but if I bring her here first, I'm not gonna be able to get all of these hairs, and I'm gonna leave a little gap along her like very front peak, and we don't wanna do that. So I'm gonna start on this side of her part line, pieing back with slices and broken slices. Same thing coming back on the other side. I'll show you all of that right now. So breaking her back into her center part, and I'm just gonna take a nice slice right off her hairline. And all I'm gonna do is just pick out a couple soft little baby hairs. That's it. I'm not doing a weave. This is traditionally speaking a slice, but I just picked out a couple little soft baby hairs, and I'm locking that in nice and tight. And I'm still using Beyond Bond Lightener with 10 volume. The hairline is the most fragile area on the head. So if I went in with a high volume developer here, we run the risk of having breakage. So I'm still working low and slow. I will bump my developer volume for the Mohawk section so we can kind of speed things up and catch up a little bit. But again, I'm just holding that foil, painting really nice and close, kicking her little ends out of the way, going right behind that with one more fine slice. And this is very fine. We're talking like very, very, very fine sections. So now I'm working into my second super fine slice on this side of her part line, making sure my foil is nice, flat, and tight. And that was a back-to-back slice. I'm gonna move to the other side of my part. So now on the other side, you can see right there, I've got a clean, straight line right across, connecting from my second foil here on my face frame money piece section, all the way to my hairline foils on the side. So now I know, even after this first foil there, my hairline is going to be fully connected. Taking that nice, fine slice. And again, I'm just going through and just kicking out a couple small little baby hairs just for softness. And now going back in with my second very fine slice. Now that we have finished our second fine slice, we have two fine slices on both sides. Now I'll be going directly behind that with a tiny bit more space so they're not so fine back to back. And I'm gonna do a broken slice like we did in our crown section. So again, that broken slice is that slice that it never breaks the surface of the slice, but it weaves underneath the surface. Do the same thing on the other side, doing my broken slice on this side, and then we'll connect to our back. So I moved to the back. I could have continued working from my face frame all the way to the back, but I like to move myself back to the last section I worked on back here so I can continue the same pattern moving forward with the same spacing, the same technique. Oftentimes I find that when you start from the front, work your way all the way to the back, that's when you end up with having this like split hair color at the crown where you have your back pattern versus your front pattern. So it almost makes me reset my mind. Okay, I'm in the back now. I remember I was taking medium density between my foils. I was doing my broken slice with my lowlights in between. So it puts me right back in that frame of mind. So I have the same connection. So I'm gonna be doing that same broken slice with my lowlights being my dropout. And as I work further and further towards the face, I'm gonna be doing less and less and less of my lowlight. Meaning, against my face frame, my lowlight may just look like that, a teeny tiny bit. Because we're still connecting to the back, we are just going to drag that down almost all the way to the ends, not quite as far as we were dragging before. I'm already starting to bring that paint up just a tiny touch higher. And then again, I'm gonna lay my highlight in place. And now I have switched to Beyond Bond Lightener with 20 volume. And I'm just going to feather that all the way down, making sure these ends are nice and bright where they look just a teeny bit dark through there, resaturating up towards the top. And I'm gonna continue this as we work closer. I'll come back to you when we're a little bit closer to the face frame to show how I'm painting my lowlights and the section sizes. So now that I'm super close to my face frame, this is actually going to be my last low light to connect to my bright pop in the front. So I wanted you guys to see how tiny this low light really is and how little I'm actually going to paint down to blend. So just tapping over my line of demarcation, blending up to my natural, and I'm just gonna give it one little feathered stroke to paint that low light down. And then I'm grabbing my highlight directly in front of it. And I am giving a light feather through some of this section. It's just very light, just to give it a little bit of a boost, but not heavily saturating through those ends. And I'm just gonna continue these broken slices super close together until we're done. All of her highlights are all in, and we are going to let this sit for about 30 minutes total, give or take. It totally depends. Every client's different. Every head of hair is different. I'll be checking her foils every 10 minutes until she's ready. Okay, we have our highlights freshly rinsed out. We've done nothing else yet, but I am going to add our Porosity Equalizing Spray. Number one, first and foremost, to equalize the porosity. But it also has aloe in it, which is going to help condition and soften her hair as well. So I'll apply that pretty generously into her hair first. We've all had that moment where the porosity is a little out of whack, and then the toner takes different in different areas. We've all had that moment, so this is huge for that. Especially on my hairline. I really like to spray my hairlines pretty well, because that fresh hairline lift is always gonna take the toner like the most, right? For our formula today, for our toning formula, we are using 9PV, 10B, and clear, all equal parts, 1 to 2 with 9 volume developer. Here's how I like to apply it. I like to get it on fast, and I also like to section out my hairline and leave that for the last couple of minutes. That's kind of like my toning trick. I always like my hairline and my blondes to be just a tiny bit brighter than everything else and a little less toned. It's already so light. And I'm just gonna section out my sides just for control. Put that up out of the way, and I use my hands. So I'll take my formula in my hand and I like to work it into the hair. I'm not doing any root shadow or melting, so I don't have to worry about taking like small subsections to melt together. I'm just getting this on the hair as fast as possible. If we think about our processing times when it comes to our toners, We put the formula on and we let it sit for 10 minutes, but if it took us 15 minutes just to put it on, think of how much tone is already on this back section that isn't on the front sections. So I like to work very, very fast to get my toners on. I also like to massage it into my ends. That tiny bit of friction just helps to open the cuticle even more, getting my toner in there to saturate and tone really, really well. And I'm just gonna continue this up the back of the head into the front, and then I'm going to leave the hairline out for a few minutes. So I'll bring you back in when we're going to saturate the hairline. Okay, we've had her formula all over now for about 10 minutes. We're gonna pop it on her hairline and let it sit for probably about another 5 minutes, and then we'll be rinsing out. So this is literally just taking a little dab. And then I always position away from the face so that way we're not painting towards, which just keeps it clean and keeps the color off of her. But I'm just gonna put this on and let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then we'll see you back when she's done and fully styled. And here is the end result of our gorgeous dimensional buttercream blonde. What I love the most about this low lighting technique, when I turn her head, you can truly see that shadowing, almost halo effect of those lowlights, but you don't see, here are my lowlights, which I'm obsessed with. As a reminder, that lowlight was 8B, 9N with 9 volume 1 to 2 from our Demi range. And then our gorgeous gloss all over, giving that beautiful buttercream, beigey, creamy feel, is the 9PV, 10B, and clear, all equal parts, 1 to 2 with 9 volume. I'm obsessed with this look, and I hope that you are too, and that you learned some really great tips and tricks to take back behind the chair right now. So please make sure to tag us because we want to see your end results, and we'll see you at the next one.